right, hey folks. Hope you're having a good time in Vegas, and thanks for coming out to see me talk about Reddit search. How many of you in the audience actually use Reddit? Yes, we got some fans. I hope you actually like it. Hopefully you guys know that we recently launched a new search engine a few weeks back, and hopefully you're enjoying the improvements. What I want to talk about here today is the journey toward those improvements. And it's a long story. People have been complaining about Reddit search probably for as long as Reddit has existed, really. And only very recently have we had the opportunity to fix it. I remember, I've been at Reddit for about a year, and the first week on the job at Reddit, I said, I want to fix search. It's the #1 thing on my priority list. And the CTO, who you meet later, said, well, why don't you go talk to the search team on the 5th floor? The funny thing about that is the 5th floor button on our elevator was broken, and we also don't have a search team. So you'll see him in a few minutes. He's a cool guy. For those of you who aren't on Reddit, we'll talk about that, what Reddit is first. Reddit is commonly called the front page of the internet. It's got a lot of news and discussion and so forth. But really, the way that we think about it at Reddit is that it's a social network where people can find communities who are just as excited about different passions and interests as you are. A place where you can have deep, authentic conversations about those topics. That's what makes Reddit special. So whether it be you're a fan of sneakers, or you're a fan of sports, or what have you, there's very, very likely a community for that topic on Reddit with maybe tens or if not hundreds of thousands of other interested people that you can connect with. So check it out if you haven't used it already. Now, a lot of people, even those who know about Reddit, don't know how big it is. So I want to talk about that real quick. So Reddit by the numbers, for those of you who are familiar with Alexa traffic rankings, Alexa is the service that kind of ranks popular websites by usage and engagement. Reddit is actually the 4th ranked site in the United States on Alexa, and the 7th highest ranked in the world. I checked the stats on Monday, and I think we're up to 320 million MAU. There are 1.1 million communities on Reddit, 1 million posts per day, 5 million comments per day, 75 million votes, upvotes and downvotes, and then 70 million searches per day. So you may not have known it, even if you're a really hardcore Redditor. The site is extremely popular. And the next question that people usually ask after I explain these statistics to them is, well, how does that even work? So let's talk about how Reddit works briefly. So Reddit's got kind of 4 things that come together in an interesting way to make it a very, very engaging site. It's got higher engagement metrics than any other site on the internet, according to Alexa. And we'll talk about 4 things that come together to make it work. First is pseudo-anonymous accounts. So on Reddit, you don't need to give your real identity. You can make kind of a fake account and go in and join and maybe say things that you wouldn't have otherwise said if you had to use your real identity. That lets people open up and be a little bit more authentic. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. This guy's laughing at me. Communities and rules. So Reddit is really powered by communities. It isn't just a big list of content. That content is actually filtered through communities that have particular interests and particular rules about the type of content that can exist in those communities. So some communities will maybe be about sports, and you can only talk about sports. Some communities may be about just posting videos from YouTube, but you have to follow the rules in order to get into Reddit, and that kind of filters the type of content available in each community. Third thing, voting. Reddit has upvotes and downvotes, similar to likes and dislikes on other platforms. And then finally, the hot front page. So even if you aren't engaged in a particular community, even if you haven't signed up for Reddit, you can still go to reddit.com and see this hot front page, which is all the cool stuff from across the entire internet filtered into one page. And when you take those things and apply scale, that's where the real magic happens for Reddit. The result of all that is an endless stream of curated, high-quality, addictive content. So if you're around the Reddit office, we like to think of Reddit as weaponized procrastination. We are out to lower the world's GDP. So what are we doing with all of that power? The ability to take communities of millions of people and apply them and get them excited, and what are we doing with all of that? Well, Let me show you what we're doing with it. You're going to love it. First, on the left, what we've got here, this is a cat fist bumping a human. It's got 817,000 views. Tell me if you don't like that. And on the right, we've got a cat. This cat is actually walking the human. 350,000 views. So a lot of Reddit is cat pictures, we'll admit. But wait, there's more. It's not just cat pictures. Let me try and convince you of that over the next minute and 30 seconds. So on Reddit, I'll go back to what I said earlier about communities. We think community is greater than content, is greater than the individual. And that results in 3 unique characteristics of how people act on Reddit, the types of content that you see. Our content's more authentic. Our content has more creative freedom. And in some cases, Reddit allows for empathy in a way that you don't see on other platforms. And I'll just give you a couple quick examples here. So first example, Reddit, there's a Reddit community called r/confession. And what you can do in this community is you can go there and you can anonymously reveal secrets that would change your life if they were revealed in any other way. So you go on there, you're anonymous, you reveal secrets. So here's one. Posted by, let's go here. Posted by Tom Gold account. He says, I cut off all contact with everyone I know, moved to Kenya. I tell people a fake name, fake background. I've made it appear to my family that I died on a boat trip in the Pacific. No, I'm not joking. I am dead in the United States. And then the first reply to that is, Tupac? You see, Reddit is a place where Tupac can be himself. Sorry. Second one. I once helped out my female friend's family by taking care of their cat for a week. Every day for a week, I'd go over there and snoop around their house. I found my friend's diary and proceeded to read the entire thing. I used this information to get her to like me, and she is currently my wife. Brought to you by Reddit. So you can really be authentic on Reddit. The next example I want to show is what happens if you're a content creator, the kind of things that can happen if a community is backing your ability to content create. This is an example of a Reddit thread. The title of it was Rome, Sweet Rome, and it started from a question, what would happen if a time portal opened and modern military hardware were sent back to ancient Rome? And this was a Reddit thread that went on for several thousand comments, and it actually was purchased by Warner Brothers and turned into a Hollywood movie script, which I think is pretty cool. And then the final example I'll give for empathy at scale is this. So r/assistance, you can ask for help. In this instance, Kayla Davis found a kidney on Reddit. Now, it wasn't instantaneous. It took about a year of process if you read through the entire thread, but someone was actually able to reach out and find a kidney donor through Reddit. So those are the kind of things that happen on our platform. But the thing is, none of that matters if you can't find the results. And Reddit search has been broken for a long time. We're really, really proud of our partnership with Lucidworks over the last few months to get us back on our feet and get us on a platform that we think will take us to the future. But before we talk about all those great advancements, I want to look back and talk about the history. So we've got a special treat for you guys today. My CTO is here, Chris Slowe, founding engineer of Reddit, here to talk about the history of search at Reddit. Chris, will you come on stage? Welcome, come on. All right. Thanks, man. All right, take it away, man.
Hi, everyone. So Nick mentioned I was, besides being CTO, I was founding engineer, which is kind of a fancy way of saying that there's a period in my life where I made some questionable career decisions and worked entirely for pizza. Now, in this case, it actually worked out really well. For the sake of this talk, it means I get to do things like bring up instances in the past where we tried to be really clever and to show mostly that there's a difference between clever and smart. So if we're going to go all the way back to the beginning, 2005, I think our entire stack consisted of basically 2 boxes. And in the beginning, there was Postgres. And Postgres is actually pretty good insofar as it has stemming. It's great. We didn't know much about search. We knew that there was basically a contrib folder in Postgres that said you could actually do full text searching with T-Search 2. And we thought that's pretty sweet. This is also a period of time where we got really into Postgres triggers because we were like, oh, we can do all this like vote computation on the database. Isn't that great? We don't have to write any code for it. It took us about 3 years to unwind that one. But kind of unsurprisingly, what we found is that over the course of this first implementation of search, it worked. It had very poor relevance, and also it ended up bogging down our Postgres machines. I think we had approximately like 2% of our traffic going to search at that point, and we're using like 50% of our resources just doing stemming and trying to do sorts. So a couple years passed, and we kind of got to the critical breaking point, and we did what became a theme, which is like take the new guy, in this case it was me, and just make them redo search. And so enter Lucene. We discovered, hey, this is an entire tool which is dedicated to doing search. Isn't that great? It not only does stemming, but it has its own data store. And so we cobbled together, and by we I mean me, a lovely little Python RPC client and server that would talk to Lucene, which was running on a single box. And I actually checked the history. It was actually in my home directory. And implemented search. And it actually worked out pretty well. But again, it was like one of those, we'll figure out how to scale it later. We'll get to it. It'll eventually work. We actually had posts and comments at that point that were indexed perfectly. But kind of big surprise, we lasted about a year before we found out my little home directory was not going to be sufficient to run search. So 2008, enter Solr. We actually got into Solr pre 1.3. This is actually long before Solr and Lucene were even the same thing. Continuing this make the new guy fix it, we passed it on to David King, who's actually once again working on search, which is kind of a fun loop. And he set up an actual search cluster. We had a search server. We wrote some wrapper code that basically made it seamlessly work with our Python backend. It was scalable. It was tunable. Wrote up this great blog post. It was like, we know we've lied to you before, but we promise it's fixed this time. And it worked pretty well for a while. Time passes as it does. In 2010, we had the first year where we cracked 1 billion pages a month, which was kind of terrifyingly awesome. This is the entire engineering team in 2010. So it was, we were basically holding things together with mostly duct tape and prayers. It was a lot of time spent doing like 503 mitigation and trying to make sure we could add like enough Postgres read slaves to kind of cover the tasks at hand. Postgres is a great tool, but scaling it up is definitely not a fun experience. We also were just throwing cache at Reddit. I think it was around this time we broke a couple hundred gigabytes of memcache just to try to keep ahead of things. We actually also, at this point, used an early version of Cassandra. And that turned out to be the result of that was general improvement in our performance until we discovered we didn't know how to scale Cassandra and we had a 24-hour downtime. So with all of this happening, it kind of came back to, oh, wait, search. What's happening with search? Well, not good things. So I actually used our new search to pull these up. These are the ones that I could actually present. So suffice to say that Reddit primarily exists and historically has existed as a platform to criticize Reddit. And it was no exception with search. I mean, it would go over and over again. What's wrong with Reddit search? What are you guys doing with search? Why do I not have search? And so at this point, we were kind of like, what are we going to do? So we did the reasonable thing, which is, if you love something, you outsource it. It's something that nobody ever said. We kind of gave up. We had a great, we made contact with this company called Index Tank. And Index Tank actually offered to just take search off our hands. And they had some really great pricing, and they had some really good demos of what they could do with our API. And we figured, oh, we hook them in, we'll give it a shot. And so we got a chance to focus on the main stack full time and kind of offload this work to somebody else. And it worked really well, and they did a great job, except that 2 years later they got bought by LinkedIn. Good for them. That's the dream of every startup, to get bought. They gave us about 6-month grace period to get off of their search and to kind of figure it out on our own. Continuing into history, 2012 was the time when Amazon got really into building a service for everything. And so it just so happens they had just about launched Cloud Search as their kind of drop-in search replacement right around this point. And we're like, oh, cool, we can chase the next big thing and jump onto Cloud Search. And like most things, as is the theme here, it worked really well for a while. And then we started getting this little sad alien. The search failed. This is an alien lost in a dreamland, is the joke. And so we once again started having problems where we had to fix it. Users are still going to search. It's still a small % of our traffic. Now, of course, there's a chicken and egg problem there too, right? Which is, if search actually worked, it might end up being more than 2% of our traffic. But so by early this year, we're still using cloud search. I think we're the biggest cloud search installment at Amazon. I think we're at like 200 or 300 nodes. And it was just getting slower and slower. I mean, we were getting, as you can see in that kind of bottom graph, the average search response time was kind of through the roof. We actually started timing out, I think this might be a P90. We start timing it out after about 10 seconds. And so we were just dropping searches left and right. And it turned out that the solution here, like we worked with their support. We had a giant set of indices. They basically gave us the equivalent of, can you just like turn it off and turn it back on again? So we like shut it off, re-indexed the whole thing, brought it back up, and that actually did the trick as sort of a stopgap. And so I guess what I'm trying to say here, not to suggest that we are completely incompetent, that's not the target, but I'm trying to say here is that search is hard. Search is difficult, and in fact, if you read through, I should actually include a graph in here of the number of times we said we fixed search as a function of time. It's probably also up and to the right. The general theme was, if you read through this, some of my favorite ones on here are, we launched a new search yesterday. Calm down, it's OK. I know you've been hurt before. And you can see there that we had about a third of our queries dying at one point because of the 5-second latency in responding. Another thing here to keep in mind is that Redditors are picky. They really have a thing in mind of what they want. They have their meme that they're looking for. Memes do not index well in text. The picture over on the left is near and dear to my heart because that was actually from earlier this year, the broken machine. First of all, we used duct tape, not those kinds of ties. But the result of that post was that we actually got a search engineer as a result of it. Like we were like, if you want to come help it, come on over. And they were like, hey, I'll send you a resume. Where do I send it? And so he actually ended up starting, which is cool. And the other thing is that there's been a kind of a change in the guard, return of we old guys. And during Steve, our CEO's return address, people asked him, what's the 10-year vision for Reddit? And he said, Reddit search might work by then. So now, fortunately, we started working with Lucidworks, and this is drastically turned around. So now that I've told you about the disasters, I'd like to tell you about search today at Reddit. And for that, I'll bring out our director, Luis.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. All right. Good morning, everyone. I appreciate you all being here, especially considering it is Vegas. And I'm sure you all had a party last night, so thank you. So my first thing when I started at Reddit was Nick pulled me aside and said, you got to fix search. It sucks. Make it not suck. So I've always liked to lead with the punchline. This is what we've built with a partnership with Lucidworks. We have 3 main pieces here, and the main requirement here was that we needed a search engine that could index billions of documents and scale up to Reddit scale, with the number 4 website in the US. So there's a lot of throughput there. So 3 main pieces. We have our search microservice, which we spun off from our R2 monolith. This helped us separate concerns, pull out really the pieces that really have to do with search and are all about search and lets us iterate quicker there. It's an auto-scaling service, runs around 2 to 3 instances today. We leverage our existing data pipeline. We use that to pull in nightly ETLs for these batch updates, building a canonical view of all Reddit content for us to index, as well as live updates streaming in through Kafka. And finally, our Fusion cluster itself, 24 nodes, 3 zookeepers, indexing all the content of the front page of the internet. These numbers of instances are important because, as you heard before, our cloud search index was around 200 instances, which is kind of insane and is a lot of Reddit gold if you're keeping track. So I want to dive into a couple of pieces here first. First thing you have to do if you want to do search is you got to ingest your data. This was our first attempt at a data ingestion pipeline. It's a beast. We try to solve a few problems here. We try to build a canonical view of Reddit for search. We also try to build a canonical view of Reddit for analytics so we can make our reporting easier, as well as build something that we could train machine learning models from for other purposes. TLDR, we built up more than we could chew. Highly complex. There were 20-some queries, if you're counting on there, pulling from multiple data sources. Took about 14 hours to run nightly ETL, and numerous data quality issues, just hard to debug. So we tried it again. This time we kept it simple, down to 7 queries, single data source, Postgres. Much easier to run, much easier to maintain. We ingested about 25% more posts with this, from like 150 million to over 200 million. Runs in a third the time, down to below 4 hours, and is highly predictable. So we actually know that we're getting the content that exists in our data stores. So this was great. We can now pull in the data. We can index it. The other piece that's not on here, too, which is pretty big, is that live streaming updates. We had a lot of success pulling from Kafka for our intraday signals. And we're actually looking at moving our entire pipeline, so getting rid of all this and moving everything to streaming updates in Kafka. Our back-of-the-napkin math right now would take us it would take around 2 weeks if we wanted to do a full backfill reindex of our entire Reddit corpus in the current system. If we went through ingestions at about 1 to 5K updates per second, that takes us down to 2 days, which is pretty awesome. So how did we roll this out? This chart's kind of cool. I should have actually run it for longer because I'm at 100%, but every vertical line here is a deployment of that search microservice. And that green blob at the top, that's searches going into Cloud Search. You see that drop, by the way, in July. That's when we decided to shunt out API traffic. So you may not know, Reddit has a public API, and when you have an API, there's basically this contract that you want to maintain backwards compatibility. So we decided we're not going to change the API search endpoint. We're going to version it, and then eventually deprecate the Cloud Search one. So that's what the drop is. And then you see Cloud Search continuing and kind of going down over time, and you see this yellow blob at the top, at the right side there. That's Fusion searches coming through. Basically, what we did is, at the very beginning, we sent 100% of dark traffic to the Fusion cluster to make sure it would scale. I actually had multiple weeks set out to kind of get it up to scale, and it basically handled all the traffic from day one, which is pretty awesome. So that means that searches happening on Reddit get duplicated out to Fusion so that we could see scalability problems or catch errors or issues without even affecting the user experience, or without even users knowing that we're working on search. Did that for a while, then started putting in up 1% of traffic on Fusion, 5% listening really carefully to the community, getting a lot of bug reports. Thank you if we have Redditors here, folks that submitted bug reports on search. Our team was able to iterate on those super quickly with this separate microservice. That was awesome to see. We saw things getting fixed intraday, which is pretty amazing for me, and really helped us build trust with the community on how this rollout was going. And as we fixed things, more deployments, more rollouts, went up to 5%, 25, 50, and then ultimately last week when we made the announcement, we went up to GA, which is pretty much all Reddit traffic except for a small holdout group, just so we can measure the lift there. Now that's all great, but what did it do? So one thing was it got rid of that nasty little funky-looking error page. So it's kind of pretty to look at, but it's not a really great experience. Yellow here is Cloud Search errors, so every time you see one of those, you get one of these error pages. Green at the very bottom, we only see a couple spikes there. That's Fusion, and those spikes are when we're taking nodes down. So essentially, we eradicated errors, which is pretty awesome to see. It was like this is when we took Reddit search from, I think it was like 9 4s to 4 9s, which is pretty awesome. Now, no errors is great. What's better than no errors is also having no errors and relevant results. So first thing we did when we started getting real results was measure relevancy of Cloud Search versus Fusion. Now, a perfect search engine would yield 100% of clicks on the topmost result. No search engine is perfect, so you try to get this graph as close to the left as possible, right? In this case, you have on the left side subreddit searches, on the right side post searches, and in blue is our Fusion click tracking, and in red is the Cloud Search click tracking results. And you can see we're generally moving in the right direction. What's most exciting about this is that we actually haven't iterated a lot on relevancy. We're mostly out of the box, some great work from Lucidworks just to get us, get some spam stuff filtered out, get some easy wins there, but we really haven't spent a lot of time here. And now we have a platform that we can actually go and invest in and do things like machine learning models, query intent rewriting, even the stuff that Vegas.com was doing that was pretty cool, like phonemes. Like, there's definitely a lot of typos on Reddit world, so getting that handle is going to move this needle even further. Quick recap, numbers. So over 250 million posts indexed today, about 1,000 plus updates per second, 400 QPS from our first-party apps, and about 75 million per day actually today, including our API searches, 75 million searches. This is just the beginning. We're only indexing posts and subreddits today. Comments are orders of magnitude higher, and that's what we're moving towards next. We're also ingesting messages, user profiles. We're looking to really make every piece of content on Reddit searchable. One more. So the one piece that I want to actually dig into a little bit deeper that we did play around with on relevancy is subreddit search. So Redditors are very creative. r/Super Bowl is actually not about the Super Bowl. It's about superb owls. So this makes it pretty hard for a search engine to know if someone comes on the site and they search for the Super Bowl, do they really want to look at majestic pictures of owls, or do they want to look up, do they want to look up football? So how do we solve this problem? How do we address this problem, right? When the documents that you're indexing doesn't really have the information that you're looking for. So our answer was just now that we can scale up to broader searches, we just did a search on posts for what the person is searching for and rolled up and aggregated by subreddits. So here's a couple examples. If you're familiar with these screenshots, they're from the Reddit app. If you're not familiar, download the Reddit app. Shameless plug aside. So these are a couple examples. White here is the cloud search index results. Black is Fusion. Hopefully you can read them a little bit, but on the left side, you've got learning to code as one of our search queries, and okay results on cloud search, not really that great. Definitely better results on Fusion. You see learn programming, web dev, programming, as well as Ask Reddit. I'm going to get back to that one in a little bit. Ask Reddit is our biggest subreddit by far, by the way. We got coming out. Coming out is an interesting query because it's a very kind of abstract term. It's a very ambiguous term as well. It's hard to know what the person is asking for. Pretty useless results. On the left side, nothing really that great. On the right side, you actually get a lot of great support communities for people that are going through this and that are thinking about this. Couple more queries. In this case, where cloud search actually returned no results. Iron and Fusion is one that I think is pretty exciting, and I didn't really know much about it. And we had no results before. Now we get Crohn's disease and baby bumps. And sure enough, you do a little bit of research on the internet, and you find out that people with Crohn's disease generally have iron deficiency, so they care about iron infusion, so do pregnant women. So great results there. Oil leaking, also another one that didn't really have many results, but has a lot to do with mechanics, right? And mechanics, people dealing with motorcycles, cars, as well as environment, which is really interesting, because you could have oil spills that people care about. So what's up next? If you're paying attention, there's a few results, even on the Fusion side, that didn't really make sense. The Ask Reddit case. That's basically because some of our subreddits are just ginormous. Like, Ask Reddit is huge. Pretty much anything that you search for, you are going to get enough hits on Ask Reddit to make it roll up as if it was relevant for that subreddit. So we want to look at normalization. That should easily kind of help us solve that problem. On a similar vein, we also want to ingest comments. Now, this one I'm super excited about because in the same way that for subreddits, instead of searching the subreddit metadata, I can just go and search post and roll up to the subreddit. For comments, I can search for comments and roll up to posts. So picture, those awesome videos of cats. Someone could have just posted a video on Reddit, and I don't even need to go and build some crazy ML and AI model to decide to look at that video, look at that image, and understand what it's about. I can just go and index comments. And sure enough, if there is a post with a video on it and a ton of comments about cats, and I search for cats, that video is likely about cats. Now, I'm really excited about this because I run the Reddit intelligence group, so we build models of machine learning algorithms and AI for a lot of purposes at Reddit, so I love that stuff. And this actually also helps me get training data for that stuff, and it's an even a much simpler way of solving some of those challenges. So that was a lot about what we're doing today. Well, I want to bring Nick back on stage, tell us a little bit about what's coming up next for search.
Thanks, man. Good job. OK, I hope you guys enjoyed that trip down memory lane, and as well as the discussion of what we're doing today with the Lucidworks partnership. I want to talk about the future, what's happening next, because we are certainly not done. Now that we've got this new platform, our ambitions have only gotten that much greater. So let's talk about the kind of things that we're looking at. So 3 areas. Relevance is the first. Luis covered that in a lot of depth, but we have only scratched the surface of being able to tune the results. And we've got a lot of that we want to do here over the next few months. I won't drill into that any more than to say that things like query intent and understanding why people are searching for things on Reddit could go a long way to improving the results. Sometimes you're searching for comments, sometimes you're trying to find a new subreddit, sometimes you're trying to find a particular type of content on Reddit. And all of those things are low-hanging fruit for optimization really over the next few weeks and months. Which leads me to the second thing, which is smarter search for different content types. So a lot is happening at Reddit. You guys, if you are Redditors and you pay attention to what we've been shipping over the past few months, we haven't just done search. We've actually added video and a whole host of other features to the platform. Those things aren't actually hooked up to search in a way that we're really exploiting yet. So being able to search for video, for images, et cetera, and make that a really world-class experience is going to happen over the next few months. The other thing is Reddit, because it is so text-heavy, in addition to having all the links and so forth, has probably one of the world's largest collections of Q&A pairs that we may be able to exploit. So you could imagine if you have a question about a product or a movie or anything, it's very likely that someone on Reddit has had that same question, and it's very likely that there's a comment thread with an answer associated with that question. And we'd like to be able to mine Reddit and surface up those questions very easily for our users. Final thing I want to talk about is search navigation. I think you guys would all agree that the better search is, the more it becomes kind of a first-class part of how you navigate the site. Right now, Reddit's search bar is a tiny little thing up in the top right. It is kind of indicating the quality that you can expect. It's almost hidden away. But what I want to show you is just some imaginings that we're putting together about how that might change over the next year. So you can imagine that in the future, rather than search being kind of hidden up and to the right, it grows to take over the entire top nav. And here you see a much richer experience that breaks out the different content types in a way that you can use search to actually explore all of Reddit. So I don't know when this type of experience is going to land on the site, but being able to give our users these sorts of richer, more engaging experiences is critical to the next wave of development at Reddit. So the final thing I want to leave you guys with is let's go beyond search and just talk about the future of Reddit as a whole. And I'll summarize that with 2 points. We love Reddit, but we know that it has to be more welcoming to new users. Reddit gets a lot of traffic, but a lot of that traffic doesn't come back. And if you ask them, hey, why didn't you come back to the site? They'll give you a few reasons, but one of the first ones is, I wish it felt more welcoming. I wish the site didn't look like, well, the site does literally have UI that was developed 10 years ago. But making that site look and feel more pleasant is one of the biggest investments that we're cranking on right now. And then the second thing is, even if users can kind of get into the site, they get past the dated UI, they can't find content easily that's personalized and relevant to them. So most other sites on the internet that you sign up for learn about you and your interests as you use the site. And Reddit doesn't do that. Reddit, you still have to very manually, carefully subscribe to different communities. It's hard to find things that might be interesting to you. So over the next few months, we're going to be making it so that Reddit becomes a place where the platform itself learns about your interests and optimizes that feed of personalized and relevant content to you. We are already the world's most engaging site, but you ain't seen nothing yet. We're going to try and destroy the world's productivity. So, with that, I'd like, if you would indulge me, please welcome back Chris and Luis to the stage. And we are done. Thank you very much. If you'd like to get in contact with us, here are our email addresses. And the final thing, perhaps the most important thing, we are hiring like crazy. We have literally got to hire about 30 engineers for search and relevance. If you're at all interested in improving search or relevance or even the navigational experiences I just talked about, please feel free to email any of us. And with that, I think we are good to go.